So picture this, it's around 2700 BCE, right? And on the banks of the Nile, something absolutely revolutionary is happening. What was once just a bunch of competing territories is suddenly crystallizing. It's becoming one of the world's very first centralized states. And this wasn't just the start of another kingdom. No, this was the creation of a blueprint for power that would echo for thousands of years.
Which brings up this huge question. How do you even do that? How do you build a system, a culture, a government, a whole belief structure that is so strong, so stable, that it actually lasts for millennia? Well, the early Egyptians cracked the code, and that's the incredible story we're going to get into today. So, here's how we're going to trace this blueprint. First, we'll see how they managed to forge a single, unified kingdom out of total chaos. Then, we're going to uncover the one brilliant idea that became the bedrock for everything else. After that, we'll pop the hood and look at the engine, the bureaucracy and ideology that powered it all. And finally, we'll see how that incredible legacy was, quite literally, set in stone.
All right, so to really get what the Old Kingdom pulled off, we have to rewind a bit and look at what was there before. Because it wasn't a blank slate. It was a land of fragmented power, and somebody had to figure out how to bring it all together.
And let me tell you, this did not happen overnight. This timeline really shows you that this was a process that took centuries. You can think of those pre-dynastic and early dynastic periods as kind of this long, slow burn, almost like a laboratory where they were testing out the very ideas of kingship and central control, getting it all ready for the Old Kingdom's big debut.
Now this is where you really see the tectonic shift. I mean, look at this. Before 2700 BCE, power was all personal. It was based on who you were related to, on these shaky alliances that could fall apart at any moment. But after, it became institutional. We're talking about going from a loose network of rival towns to a single nation with a permanent civil service, a tax system for the whole country, and the muscle to command these massive, state-sponsored projects. It's a total game changer in how you organize a society. So how in the world did they make that leap? Well, it all came down to a revolutionary new idea, a divine blueprint for the state that was brought to life by two absolutely extraordinary people. So let's meet the masterminds. You've got King Djoser, this super innovative ruler with a huge vision, and then you've got his right-hand man, Imhotep, and this guy was a true genius. He was an architect, a high priest, a doctor, the whole package. And together, these two basically engineered a whole new reality for Egypt. And this was their masterstroke, the step pyramid. But you gotta understand, this was so much more than just the world's first skyscraper. It was a statement. It was a physical declaration in stone that said, the king's power is eternal. His legacy is the state, and the state is now powerful enough to command the very landscape. And this just shows you how that one single project became the template for the entire nation. I mean, think about it. To build it, you had to organize massive teams of workers. You had to get resources, stone, wood, food, from all over the country. The pyramid itself made the king's divine status a physical reality. And the state-sponsored cults created to maintain it, they made sure his memory and the state's ideology would last forever. Okay, so let's move on and see how this blueprint was actually put into practice. What was the operating system? What was the engine that actually made this new Egyptian state run? Well, for starters, it was run by one of the earliest and most sophisticated bureaucracies on the planet. At the very top, you have the pharaoh, who's not just a king, but a living god. But he can't do it all himself. He has a vizier, who is basically the prime minister, the chief administrator running the whole show. And under them, you have nomarchs, who are like regional governors, managing everything on the local level. But what was the software running on all this hardware? It was one simple, powerful idea: Ma'at. And this wasn't just some vague concept, it was the cosmic order of the universe: truth, justice, balance. And the pharaoh's #1 job was to maintain Ma'at here on Earth. This idea was the ultimate justification for everything. It meant that paying your taxes or working on a pyramid wasn't just you serving the king, it was you, personally, helping to uphold the balance of the entire universe. It was the ultimate mission statement.
So the pharaoh wasn't just some political leader. His religious role was absolutely everything. He was the one and only bridge between humanity and the gods. He was the living embodiment of the god Horus, and later, he was considered the actual son of the sun god Ra. In this system, there was zero separation between church and state. They were one and the same.
And the power this system could unleash was just staggering. To build these massive projects like the pyramids, the state had to mobilize tens of thousands of workers. And that number, it's not just about manpower, it's a testament to the state's mind-boggling logistical skill. Because here's the thing, building a pyramid wasn't just piling up a bunch of rocks. It was a massive state-building exercise in itself. You had to create vast supply chains to feed everybody, you had to build infrastructure just to move these giant blocks of stone, you needed specialized teams of craftsmen, and you had to organize all of it around the annual flooding of the Nile. The pyramids themselves were the ultimate proof that this centralized state actually worked.
And this brings us to our final piece. Why does this ancient blueprint still matter so much? Because its impact wasn't just for a few centuries. No, it was etched into the very identity of Egypt itself.
The Old Kingdom created the model of divine kingship that pretty much every later dynasty would try to copy. It established the architectural language, the pyramids, the temples, that we still think of when we picture Egypt today. It proved the incredible power of a centralized bureaucracy. And most importantly, it embedded this deep cultural value for order and stability that would define Egyptian civilization for the next 2,000 years.
And you don't just have to take my word for it. This quote really says it all. For the rest of ancient Egyptian history, rulers looked back at this era as the Golden Age. It was the ideal, the perfect model of pharaonic power and cosmic order that they were all trying to live up to. And that kind of leaves us with a final fascinating thought, doesn't it? The Egyptians created a blueprint for their society that was so powerful, its echoes lasted for millennia. It really makes you stop and wonder, what are the core parts of our society's blueprint today? What ideas, what institutions, what grand projects are we building right now that are so fundamental they might still be shaping the world 3,000 years from now?